Welcome to section 6.7, solving radical equations and inequality. Today we're going to cover solving square root equation. So again, what I mean by square root is when you see a radical with a invisible 2. So here's are some direction when it comes to solving square root equations. First is isolate the square root, meaning no numbers in the front or behind. Afterwards, raise by the second power on both sides. So again, raise by the second power on both sides. Afterwards, solve the equation. So here's my square root in our first example. So in our first example, we have the square root of 14 minus n. Now, it's on the right side of the equal sign, and we have the plus 4 that's outside the square root. So for step 1, isolate the square root. If I want to get this by itself, I need to get rid of the plus 4. So the opposite of plus 4 is minus 4. So I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. So on the left is 7 minus 4, which is 3, equal to the square root of 14 minus n. Once I get the square root by itself, I'm going to raise both sides by the second power. So on my right side, I'm going to raise the whole thing by the second power. And then on the left side, I'm going to raise it by the second power also. I have to do it on both sides by the same exponent. So on the left, 3 squared is 9. And when I'm raising the square root of 14 minus n by the second power, when I raise it, this radical will disappear because it will become 1 with the rational exponent. So when that happens, when you're raising the square root by the second power, I'm just going to write what's inside. So 14 minus n. So I repeat, when I'm raising the square root by the second power, I'm just going to rewrite the inside only. So 9 equals 14 minus n. After that, we're going to get negative n by itself. So I'm going to subtract 14 on both sides. So 9 minus 14, that's going to be negative 5, equal to negative n. Again, do not forget your negatives. Afterwards, to solve for n, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1 because I want a positive n. Once I do that, I'm going to have positive n equals to 5. And that would be my final answer. And that's all we have to do when solving equation. To double check if this answer is correct, simply plug it in to the original problem. So if I plug in 5 into n, inside the square root I'm going to have 14 minus 5, which is 9. The square root of 9 is 3, so 3 plus 4 equals 7, so it works. So therefore n equals 5 is the correct answer. In our next example, we have 5 equals 3 minus, where 5r minus 1 is being powered by the rational exponents 1/2. So this can be converted into a square root equation. So 5r minus 1 is being powered by 1/2. So if we were to convert from exponential form, also known as rational exponent form, to radical form, then it would look like this. 5 equal 3 minus, and then what's inside the parenthesis, 5r minus 1, I'm going to rewrite it as this. Now you can write the 2 here, or you can leave it as invisible. And then here, 5r minus 1, I didn't write it with parenthesis because the numerator is 1. If the numerator is 1, then you just write the inside without the parenthesis. So I repeat, if the numerator of the rational exponent is 1, you can write the inside 5r minus 1 without the parenthesis when you put it in radical form. Alright, once you finish converting to radical form, you are going to follow these 3 steps. Isolate the square root. So here's my square root. I want to get it by itself on the right side of the equal sign. So in order to do so, I need to get rid of this 3. So the opposite of positive 3, I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. 5 minus 3 is 2, equal to minus or negative the square root of 5r minus 1. Now, when you're trying to isolate the square root, you also have to make sure that it's positive. In this case, it's negative. So in order to get rid of this negative, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. So on the left, it's going to be negative 2 equal, and then on the right side, negative square root of 5r minus 1 divided by negative 1. These two negatives will divide and become a positive, and I'm going to be left with just the square root of r5 minus 1. And now you see that it's positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite over here for more space. So negative 2 equal the square root of 5r minus 1 Now once we get the square root by itself and it's positive, we're going to raise both sides by the second power. So I'm raising the left side by 2, and I'm raising the right side by 2, and I'm raising the whole thing by 2. So negative 2 squared, that means negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. And then when I'm raising the square root by the second power, I'm simply going to write the inside, which is 5r minus 1. After that, I want to get 5r by itself, so I'm going to add 1 on both sides. So on the left is 5, and then on the right side is 5r. After that, I'm going to divide both sides by 5 to get r by itself. So it's going to be 1 equal to r. What you can do is flip the whole side and it will be r equals to 1. Now, this could be our final answer. What we're going to do is we're going to double check if this one works. So I'm going to plug in 1 into, you could do it into the original, or you could do it with the radical. So I'm going to erase everything else to make space and then continue from the radical form. Alright, so I'm going to work in blue so that I'm double checking. So I'm going to plug in 1 into r. So it's going to be 5 equal 3 minus the square root of 5 times 1 minus 1. So it's going to be 5 equal 3 minus 5 times 1 is just 5, and then it's going to be minus 1 inside the square root. So 5 equals 3 minus, inside the square root, 5 minus 1 is just 4. And then the square root of 4 would be 2, so it would be this. 5 equals 3 minus 2. So we simplified the square root, which became 2. And then if you simplify the right side, 3 minus 2 will be 1. If we take a closer look, 5 does not equal to 1, nor 1 equals to 5. Both sides does not equal to each other, so this is wrong. So r equals 1 is not our final answer, so then the only thing we could say is no solution. So even though we solve the square root equation just like any regular equation, But when you double check and plug it in, if both sides does not equal to each other, then it will be no solution. So when you solve for your square root, make sure that it actually works by plugging it in and see that the left side is equal to the right side or right side equals to the left side. If not, then it will be no solution.